there, neighbor. I know. Okay, I know. I'm not a ninja. You could see me even if I were covered in camouflage in the middle of the forest. Even if I had ninja training, which I don't, the Twinkie hanging out of my mouth would probably give me away. But I'm doing a game with ninjas in it, and it's practically a law of the internet that either I or someone I know needs to be a ninja in the video, so this is all you get. I'm sorry. Shadow of the Ninja. God, I feel stupid. But I guess it's a tradition, so just don't ask me to do a ridiculously racist accent. That's where I draw the line. Got it, asshole? Shadow of the Ninja came out in 1990, just 1 year after Ninja Gaiden came out, and was a huge hit. Trust me, we'll get to that one later. So one would assume this to be a bad rip-off or clone. They used to do that a lot in the NES days. But guess what? Shadow of the Ninja is actually a pretty badass game. Let's check it out. Before we get started, though, I want it understood that I'm probably going to mangle the pronunciations of some of these names. Just so we're clear. It's the year 2029, and the US has been taken over by the evil dictator Garuda. And you know he's evil because he wastes untold amounts of money and electricity projecting a huge image of himself over the city every night. But who can save us from utterly non-threatening nightly laser light shows? What else but ridiculously anachronistic ninjas? Yes, for reasons I won't pretend to understand, game devs loved putting ninjas in the future, even though technically ninjas stopped being a thing sometime around the American Civil War or earlier. I guess they figured if disco could make a comeback, then ninjas could too, I guess. Not that disco's making a comeback, because it shouldn't. You can play up to 2 players simultaneously, and you can choose which character to play as, Hayate in blue or Kaede in red. And according to Nintendo Power, this might be the first male and female team in video game history, as unlikely as that seems, but I can't think of any others. Though it's worth noting that there's no difference between characters aside from aesthetics. You have 2 main weapons, a katana, fairly standard for video game ninjas, and a kusarigama, which is not so standard. The katana swings faster and when fully powered up even has a longer reach, but the kusarigama, I just called it a grappling hook when I was a kid, I know it's inaccurate, and shut up, can be swung upwards or at a diagonal. And when powered up, the shockwave still fires directly forwards, no matter which direction you swing the grappling hook, so you can basically fire in 2 directions at once. And the Kusarigama has a chance of hitting twice, if the enemy's at the right distance from you. But the downside is that the Kusarigama doesn't seem to work as well in close-range situations. So, between the speed and the close-range abilities, I tend to stick with the katana at all times, but I always seem to accidentally pick up the hook at just the worst time. See, grabbing the alternate weapon resets your power down to the default. So all that work powering up your weapon just gets flushed straight down the drain. Most of the enemies are surprisingly human-shaped, but they explode, so they're naturally robots. Though some are more obviously robots than others, like the little jet-powered Roombas or the spider copters. The graphics are nicely detailed for the NES. It's rarely difficult to tell what things are. It's completely obvious what is and isn't a platform. And while the level design rarely makes for challenging platforming, it's fairly solid. The ability to grab hold of the ceiling and climb up makes for some pretty ingenious vertical sections. Though I do have to ask, what is the point of this elevator ride at the end of level 4-2? Since it leads directly to the exit anyway, why couldn't they have just put the exit here? That's admittedly a minor gripe. But then, I criticize old games on the internet. minor gripes are pretty much my entire life. Please help me.
The controls are brilliant. This is what 2D side-scrolling and platforming are all about. Tight and fluid, running and jumping, hanging and climbing all around. And this game includes a feature I absolutely love. Falling into a pit does not mean instant death. You just lose some health and reappear back out of harm's way. And I gotta say, the music is pretty damn good for an NES game. Anyway, you fight your way through a succession of levels, each visually distinct from the next, fighting bosses until you get to the big bad, which turns out to be an old bearded white man in a bright green suit.
Because there's nothing I like better than beating up octogenarians with the fashion sense of a stale breadcrumb.
But no, it turns out he's actually a badass robot ninja thing. He's got a tricky pattern, but once you learn it, you're golden. He dies, the whole place explodes, the ending thanks you for ending Garuda's reign of terror, and our heroes vanish into the night to rest and prepare for their next battle, which sadly never came.
Shadow of the Ninja should have been much more popular than it was, but I feel it was sadly overshadowed by Ninja Gaiden, which already had a sequel out by the time this was released. And while Shadow of the Ninja isn't necessarily a rip-off of Ninja Gaiden, the influence is hard to miss. Still, this is a fantastic game to add to your collection. But do you know what I remember most about this game? What else? The Invincibility code.
It's the second easiest code to remember in NES history. At the player select screen, which you'll note is different from the title screen, press AAAABBBBABABABAB. You'll hear a sound to confirm that the code is entered. There are various buttons and directions you can hold while pressing Start on Controller 1 to select what stage you want to start from, but my favorite option is Invincibility. Just press and hold down on Controller 2, and press Start on Controller 1, and bingo, you're invincible. For the most part. You can still lose energy from falling, but as long as you mind the pits, you'll be okay.
Yeah, it's cheating, but if you don't like it, don't do it! Besides, ninjas were never as strict about honor as samurais were, so I feel like they'd be cool with it. Anyway, I've got some more ninja memories to make. I gotta admit, I've always wanted to do this. Ninja away! Oh! Jesus! Fuck! My